Making another video. Another, see how it goes. It's probably mostly gravitational waves. I did, the second edition of electricity. I did not exactly what I wanted to say, exactly, but it's getting there. But yeah, I got to fix a few things again. But anyway, um, I just like that it's fits perfectly into the whole thing. You can just see it's fitting fine. But anyway, so this gravitational wave thing. So Numbly Numb went into Piro's room and they went at it for forever. Like a 7-hour room or whatever. But Piro was just so obnoxious, and there's just no concession. I mean, it's just Piro just lies about my reaction to gravitational waves, which wasn't some sort of hysterical reaction. My reaction is wow, they're saying an awful lot with what evidence? What real hard evidence? And it's kind of a bold statement, and the whole thing has so many questions that aren't answered. And so, yeah, that's sort of the point is that this is what science is doing. They're giving you these bad images of gravitational lensing and saying, look, gravitational lensing, and then gravitational waves and dark matter, and they're just, I mean, clearly it just looks like they're just making this stuff up, and none of these people want to sit there and concede that, yeah, this isn't exactly what science should be. It should be something to do with like real evidence. Columbo wouldn't go to trial with this stuff. And there should be some sort of apprehension about, or some sort of expectation that you'd have to actually prove these claims, that you just can't make them, that you have to demonstrate them. And it's just, and this whole argument they had to, for the 2 hours was mostly over just a very subtle fact, that they're making this argument that they can do this thing, they can measure this tiny, tiny distance, a human hair over billions of light years or millions of light years. And yeah, it just doesn't make any sense on its face. And then you'd say, well, why don't you just show me some of the wonderful small things you've measured? But they don't do that. There's just nothing. You get nothing. All you get is a proclamation from a group of self-interested scientists, and that's kind of dangerous, isn't it? I think it is a little bit dangerous for nobody to say, well, where's the real proof here? I mean, saying you think you've done something, and you probably have, and your math matches or something, or your simulation says so. I don't even trust your simulations. Actually, they're pretty poor, the visual ones. Not very accurate. So, through this process, I mean, the first thing I would argue is that they really haven't explained how they know they have filtered out all the possible rare noises that could be made that would look like what they're looking for. They have no theory of how they have anticipated every noise in the local region that could be an explanation for this noise, this vibration. And, it's a big issue, especially when they haven't proven that they can measure the thickness of this pen, for fuck's sake. They haven't really proven anything. I'm sure they have some evidence, but they're just not presenting it. And yeah, we really just don't get to see the close calls. We don't get to see the times that they saw a gravitational wave at one place and they didn't see it at the other place, or any of that stuff. We don't get to see those records, and I think those would be informative. All right, my biggest problem now is just the description of this thing. As they're saying now that they've proven the existence of black holes, and they haven't even proven the existence of this wave, let alone what it came from. And the whole mechanism that they're saying caused this, I've been arguing, isn't physically possible. The circumstance can't even physically possibly exist. And so then Numbly Numb did link to this Einstein paper 1939 that I have referenced, but I never read the whole thing because you can't find the whole thing. So if somebody has a PDF, they can email me or something. It's wherever I go, I always have to register, and I should just register and then read it. But anyway, you can get the basic gist. His argument is very similar to mine. Is that you have a mechanical problem. You have too much energy, and you can't there's nowhere to get rid of it. There's nowhere for it to go. You can't move huge masses at these velocities and just say, well, the the speed just floated away. It just you just can't do that. And clearly their conversion of 3 solar masses into what they call waves doesn't have any explanation. No one's ever before argued that you could convert matter into space-time, and that's essentially what they're arguing they have done, or they have measured the conversion of matter into space-time, not any regular energy, space-time. I mean, this is this is not a simple, oh, just trust them thing. These are statements that just aren't consistent, just as their images of gravitational lensing don't make any sense with anything Einstein ever wrote, and don't make any sense even if you go outside of Einstein's perceptions. These are fringe at best notions of how you could possibly organize matter in such a way as to get lensing so far out, so wide and so big a lens, that kind of thing. It's garbage. Theory. As theory, it's garbage. So I just thought I would do a simple description of my problem, part of my problem with the lensing argument, the wave argument of the 2 black holes. So their argument basically is that 2 black holes came into association with each other. These things are only 150 miles across, okay, 30 suns worth of energy, and they're in some sort of spiral that's very close just because of the frequency of their wave. So this total distance might only be like 3,000 miles or some kind of silly, the thickness of the Earth, the diameter of the Earth. So you have two 30 solar masses spinning around each other in this tiny amount of space, going these extraordinarily fast speeds, rotating around each other. Now, part of the problem is how do they even get into this relationship? You can sort of understand that something whole that's spinning, like our sun even, that theoretically something could come by and the sun would end up splitting into 2 things, and that those 2 things would retain the rotation of the sun. So that's theoretically possible. We can get 2 objects to circle each other because they were once one object. So 1 object turning into 2 makes sense. 2 objects turning into 1 in this perfect way doesn't make any physics sense. It's not consistent with physics. So let's go back to this gravity thing. Gravity is a conservative force, which means whatever down you do, you're going to have the energy to go back out. So it's like staircases. If you go down a certain number of stairs, you get a ticket for each stair. The tickets will get you right back out again. So if you go in with something, you're just going to go down, pop back out, and go out with exactly what you had. Now what might change is your direction. You might be going in a different direction, because sideways motion, walking along one of these stairs, is free. And it's the same thing with electricity and these other forces. It has nothing to do with how you get to a electrical potential or magnetic potential. It just matters that you cross the field lines, the stairs, so to speak. And that's the work. The work is in the elevation. The work isn't in any sideways motion. And the same is true for gravity. It doesn't matter how much this you do. The only thing that really matters is how far in you go, and because that gives you the energy to go back out. So if 2 black holes were to interact, to come into a gravity well of each other, even if it's each other, the point is they're not likely to stay in it. They're going to gain energy as they get close, and then they're going to swing either right past each other or crash into each other. I'm just saying it's very unlikely the 2 things are coming at each other. The thing that's going to happen is they're either crash into each other or they miss each other, and one goes out this way and one goes out that way. That's physics. That's sort of the requirement of the physics. And if they were to get into an orbit because one of them hits something or they rub against each other and exchange some energy, so they partially collide or something and somehow degrade each other's mass, then they're going to end up in ellipses. You know, they're going to end up in an ellipse. They're not going to end up in a perfect circle of rotation. You know, there's going to be something eccentric in their motion. They're going to have a, it's going to be, it's going to precess. And that precession should be visible in this gravitational wave that they saw, and there is no evidence of precession. At least that they've indicated any evidence of it. So I'm just saying basic physics says what they say happened. I don't think they can draw a fetus. They can't show me the chromosomes. They can't show me the egg and the sperm that met, that created this monster they say they have made. They found Frankenstein. They haven't explained how Frankenstein was made. They're just saying Frankenstein exists. But I don't think they can diagram how it's possible for that Frankenstein to exist. How it's possible to have black holes with this kind of acceleration, because it requires a tremendous amount of energy to move 30 solar masses half the speed of light. And that was sort of Einstein's argument. How do you do that? Where is that possible? And then it becomes even more impossible if you say they're in some sort of consistent death spiral where they're constantly gaining extra acceleration, because then you run into this singularity problem where you've created too small a masses and orbiting in too small a diameter, and there's no way for them to go faster without ending up going faster than the speed of light before they actually collide. So then you've got the even more paradoxical circumstance of having two 30 solar mass objects moving faster than the speed of light. It's bad enough you have them moving half the speed of light, but to actually collide they'd have to end up moving faster than the speed of light to have that. It's as just, you know, Mercury runs much faster than Mars and the Earth, and the, you know, stuff gets slower the further out. The tighter you get, the faster you have to spin. That's the fact of it. You can't stop that from happening. It's the ice skater thing. You start pulling your limbs in, you're going to spin faster. That's where the energy has to go, into a faster rotation. So, no explanations, no, that I've seen anywhere, explaining the origins of this thing they say they proved exists. And I don't think the proof is anywhere close to being proof. So anyway, so Numbly did good arguing. He attempted to make the point, but they're just unresponsive to any critique of the gods of science. If somebody with a PhD and a position says so, he says so, and that's good enough for them. You don't have to make arguments in physics, because apparently it's all too complicated for any of us to understand, and we couldn't possibly scrutinize their work. And they're just completely in their little ivory tower now, and nobody can judge anything they do, because they have a special knowledge and special skills and magic powers, and we just can't access it. Even Einstein doesn't mean anything. You know, who cares if Einstein said, no, you can't do that? And that's their attitude. And it's pretty obnoxious.
Universe. But, you know, the science looks like a photon or a neutron or an electron could possibly shoot back in time. You know, maybe there is...
Okay, so he's saying a proton, a neutron, electron could possibly shoot back in time. He has this notion that time isn't something that's actually consumed like energy and like motion, and it's that you have to make time to do it backwards. You can't just do it backwards for free. You know, you can't just pretend it didn't take time. It took time. And you have to take time to go back in time, and by that very sentence you're done. There's no such thing.
No beginning, and it's a big circle and stuff falls in.
It's a big circle, la 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 la. I mean, you know, this is what he says is something we should take seriously. So if I just said Hansel and Gretel put the witch in the oven, and that, you know, caused the Big Bang, fine. Let's just make up stories.
the one wormhole and spits back out. And
I mean, a wormhole, blah, 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 just some sort of blah thingy with a bubble, and it goes into the other bubbles, and you go to the other dimension and get the secret code, and you come back into this dimension, punch in the secret code. It's like Tomb Raider or something. Let's just make it up.
and the reason that's okay is because information is erased.
Oh, this information crap is just such a pile of crap. Events happen, you want to call them information, that's your choice, I suppose, but it's just more silly talk. They're events. Things happen. Stuff moves from here to there. It's an event. It's not information.
And, it doesn't mean you could trug back in time to when everything was at a point. Really, it's more...
Well, if an electron or a proton or something else can do it, why can't I? Just click my heels together 3 times. There's no place like the multiverse. There's no place like the multiverse. Maybe I could take a balloon.
About the universe is always expanding. So, there's a lot of openness as to what's really going on with this Big Bang and the meaning of creation.
Oh yeah, a lot of openness. It's all very confusing. Not. No, he just rambles on.
Did their thing, and miles and miles away, it's spread out to be big enough.
Oh, it's spread out. The whole spreading thing is kind of obnoxious, just because I'm sort of making the argument that it is a Big Bang, and the spreading is just the consequence of the cloud, the pressure moving out. So we're sort of in the, like, say there was a nuclear bomb, ground zero, and you have a pressure wave. We're in the pressure wave. And as the wave goes out, it gets thinner and thinner. So yeah, that can have the illusion of making space, like you're making more space. But no, we're just spreading out from as a consequence of the dissipation of the pressure. And eventually it'll die a heat death.
The measure on the order of the wavelength of the light they're using in the first place for the lasers. So that's how they do it. And there's a lot of
oh yeah, he gave Vic, the retard, an explanation of what an interferometer was, and it was just more bullshit. I mean, it's not that complicated, but I mean the idea of doing measurements of protons, when you just think about a mirror itself and just how much the mechanics of that is unstable. Just to say they're measuring those tiny minute changes in materials you can't make cold enough not to vibrate. It's just silly. It's silly on its face. I say it's silly. Brownian motion is going to be louder than any amount of quieting you do. Unless you have this thing down to absolute zero, no chance. So right on its face there, you're already... They could say we could measure it, but there's no way we could detect our measurement. We couldn't find our measurement in all the noise. So they could say, yeah, we're detecting the half the distance or a billionth of the distance of an atomic nucleus, but we can't see our detection because it's in so much noise. It's buried under 10,000 feet of noise. So is that their argument? I mean, that would be more rational. But to say that their mirror isn't vibrating more than half the distance of a proton all the time is a denial of basic thermodynamics.
Measurements go that way. That's the way you measure things really.
So here's Numbly Num somewhere in here, I think.
When I was in physics class, albeit back in the late 80s.
Okay, yeah, when you were in physics class, this is something you never explained. So you got a philosophy degree. You've never explained why you didn't get your physics degree. How many semesters of physics did you actually take? I mean, you just keep dropping this. When I went to school at Berkeley and was stoned all the time and basically failed, and that's why you went for a philosophy degree, right? Because physics was too big a pain in the ass. I mean, what's the real story?
We went through a mathematical proof that any star bigger than 5 or 6 times the size of the sun would eventually be bound just because of the physics of it to collapse into a black hole. So
yeah, right, to collapse into what? Some sort of unnatural state. Some state that you can't create. You've never seen a piece of matter in ever. You've never compressed matter. So let me see you do it. Let me let me see some evidence that you can compress matter, that you can put 30 solar masses in something 150 miles across. Go ahead, let me see it. But till then, it's all talk.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Listen, Einstein wrote a paper in 1939 explaining exactly why, according to the theory of relativity, black holes could never form. His paper has never been refuted, and it's sort of just like in a language you can explain things that are real, and you can. Can I just finish for a second? And you can explain things that don't exist, imaginary objects, and you can explain a black hole with mathematics in terms of general relativity. But at the same time, nobody's ever refuted Einstein's.
Right, so his argument is, look, what you can do mathematically doesn't have anything to do with what you can do in reality, and that was basically in Einstein's paper. He was just basically making the argument this is all mathematically fun, but doesn't have anything to do with reality. I mean, where the math allows you to go doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the truth or what is physically possible, because you haven't figured out yet that your formulas aren't good enough. They're not real models. They're superficial models. They're generalizations, and they don't account for real phenomenon and real limitations. But no, let's not concede that rational truth, and instead let's just be obnoxious and call people names for bringing it up.
Paper where he explained exactly why a black hole could never form. I sent you the link in that.
Well, how do you explain like the motion of stars at the centers of galaxies?
Okay, how do you explain the motion? So this is Vic chiming in, right? Who knows nothing. He had Piro explain an interferometer to him, and then clearly galaxies are fundamentally different than, say, solar systems, right? I mean, you could just look at it and see the fundamental difference, which is galaxies are symmetrical. There's mass on both sides. It's like having the idea of a parallel Earth on the other side of the sun, a parallel Saturn, and a parallel blah blah. And clearly the other distinguishing feature of galaxies is that they have these clusters of material, these wings, these spokes. And there's clearly gravitational influence tying those pieces together with each other. It's not so much the galaxy holding them together, is that their cluster is holding them together. So clearly the mechanics of galaxies is very different than the mechanics of a spherical object and under gravity like the sun, and very clearly different than a solar system. So you think the explanation is somewhere in there? I think it might be.
I'm not claiming to explain that.
I don't know what letter you're talking about or what thing. Okay,
so they're saying black holes are necessary for galaxies to exist. And what you clearly see in galaxies is there's stuff. There's more stuff in the middle than there is on the outside, so to speak. It does get denser. But there does seem like a hurricane. There's the eye of the hurricane. And so they're just saying, well, it's black, so there must be a black hole there. Well, then you'd have gravitational lensing there, and you don't. So there's a problem with that.
Pretty. Is also when he did the Szilard letter, signed it to FDR about doing the Manhattan Project.
He just keeps changing the subject, the Manhattan Project. I mean, what does that have to do with the fact that in 1939 he wrote a paper basically saying, look, this is all nice fun, but it doesn't really work. So let's just ignore that. Pretend he didn't do it.
It's in that exchange that we had. If you give me a second, I can find it.
Jump ahead. Oh, Vic again.
It says it was incorrect.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess that,
He read somebody's comments. So somebody comments, a physicist comments that Einstein was wrong and doesn't really give a huge explanation of that, and therefore we should just believe him because he has a PhD, and so therefore he was smarter than Einstein. Or therefore he's smarter than Numbly. So it's just this argument from authority. So if I find an authority with a sufficient PhD, I just say, There, this guy says so. So, end of the subject, right? Let's not argue what is being argued. Instead, let's just argue authorities. So, typical asshole that Vic is, that's his argument. The argument from authority. Authority.
It's X-rays and other high-energy particles, which it will extremely redshift, and doing all the mathematics from
which it will extremely redshift, which it'll do this too. So I guess they wouldn't be radio waves, or they wouldn't be whatever you're saying they were. First there was nothing. That's why they were black holes. Now there's something. And it just seems like, yes, they just contrive an explanation for why there's something. First there was nothing, and then that's black hole. But now they're saying, no, they're not black. They're spewing radiation. You just can't see it. Oh. So they're not black holes. They're hot. Which creates a whole nother problem then. Yeah, I mean, they really can't be condensed matter and be hot. It doesn't work.
Not true.
And the redshift, you look in the center of galaxies, and they have that. It is true.
You're wrong. Sorry. They
Sorry.
No,
I wrote the programs that analyze stuff like this. It's felt to be true. It's not a...
Okay, well, listen. They did not...
The wavelength of light that was predicted comes out.
They didn't...
Yeah, they didn't predict it. So anyway, Numberingham's making the argument. They didn't predict it. They accommodated the truth. So they just changed the theory to match what they found. And that's the truth. But anyway, they do argue that forever.
So that bugged me. I got a little hot. No, and then timing-wise, that Monsanto was all like, then he's going to try, well, that doesn't happen. I know rooms can't work that way. So...
and then they were just talking about how hostile he is. And he's like, well, I'm not drunk. And so this is how I am when I'm not drunk. I'm rude, and I talk over everybody, and I don't let anybody ever finish a sentence. And that's really, I mean, the room was just horrible. He didn't let anyone finish a sentence. And he went on forever. Droning on and on and on about his personal experience, when I was, and when I did this, and blah, 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 blah.
They have to first verify that they can, in fact, make a measurement that precise.
And my position is they have.
Before they start measuring pipes.
So, Piro's position is they have verified that they can make a measurement this precise by making the measurement this precise, by finding these two black holes that do this somehow proves the machine works. They didn't prove it works with some kind of more normal kind of thing. They couldn't find something else to find, first, like something to practice on. No, they had to go for this as the proof, and I'm just saying I don't think that's possible. You can't prove your theory with that kind of product.
Hypothetical, theoretical.
Why do you think they've been working LIGO? What do you mean they had a whole run of LIGO that failed for 8 years or whatever it was before they started up again with the second version?
I'm saying they have to prove they can measure things on that scale,
or
they can claim to measure a theoretical.
That's part of the 8 years.
Again, no, there's no proof that they can measure the width of a human hair at of whatever, 100 light years distance. There's no proof whatsoever.
I think you just don't understand what you're reading, Numbie.
Why do you think that?
Oh yes, Vic, you just know so much more about it because you're so informed. What an asshole. Fucking inheritance wealth jackass.
The scientists in general.
I understand it better than any of you do, I can tell. I can see that.
I don't think so.
I doubt you understand it as well as a physicist does.
You could tell that, but you don't, whatever. I can tell that you don't understand.
Well, let's just go by the record, okay? And then Piro said we saw his description of the two-slit experiment. Doesn't even recognize the existence of the single-slit pattern as being deep as it is. And then doesn't understand that the two-slit pattern really is superimposing two patterns on top of each other. It doesn't even acknowledge that, and doesn't acknowledge that the math doesn't provide for any of that. I mean, he's totally inaccurate in what he says the truth is. He claims stuff has been proven. He claims stuff has been demonstrated millions of times in billions of experiments, and he can't cite any of them. Can't show you one. If I ask him to show me the image that demonstrates gravitational lensing, he can't do it, and he won't do it.
I understand it as well as some physicists, but I'm saying that you're a physicist either, and I mean, the amount of just.
But I am a data science programmer. I know how to.
Oh yeah, data science programmer. Yeah, yeah, whatever, data science programmer. I'm one of those too.
That scale.
Well, they spent 8 years doing it before they.
8 years, yeah.
That's a lot of time. That's a lot of time to have no successes, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, the point is what is the definition of a success? Well, how exactly? What is this machine measuring, and what are the close? Like I said, all they have to do is show us some of the close calls, right? Show us something. Show us a volcano. Show us a sunspot. Show us these other things that might have looked like something but weren't something.
And it was possible because they had successes along the way.
Well, that 8 years possible.
And again, theoretically, what they're claiming took place. I mean, I've drawn. It's a simple pattern, and to say they can know so much out of this simple pattern is, it begs credulity thingy. So this is the pattern, and they're claiming this is a very even cycle here, and so this is the two objects swinging around each other. Presumably at half the speed of light, and they're doing it in some perfect circle. Every indication of a perfect circle here, no imbalances. And then they do this, all of a sudden they go supernova or something and slide into each other, and somehow their speed increases, and they end up, they're regurgitating energy here, some percentage of the solar mass, and then they let loose a big giant pile of energy in the form of bent space. I'm saying all that from this squiggly line. Come on. This isn't science. This isn't, you don't go to trial with this as evidence. If this is what you've got as proof, you don't go to trial. I mean, maybe you have one of those little hearing things, a preliminary hearing. And you say, well, look, this is what we got. What do you think? That's what they could have done. They said, look, we got something. Here's how we analyze it. Here's how we've interpreted it. But, what do you guys think? They could have done that. But they didn't. They said, we did it. That's what they did. And, not to be critical of that, it's just, these are religious kooks.
No, they have claimed to have demonstrated that they can measure that distance. That is
not in a non-theoretical phenomenon.
I don't know what you're talking about. They are
not in a real world circumstance. It's a theoretical thing. They haven't proven it by doing it in the real physical universe. They haven't measured a billionth of a proton. They haven't showed us their measurement of one.
Claiming that they can measure that finely and have. They are claiming that.
Yeah,
you're denying that.
I think they can, but their minds are too wrapped up in mathematics and they're neglecting the observational experiment.
Why should I take that view? Why should I take that view when they've gone so much to go in so much detail to explain how it's working?
No, they haven't. So that's another. I don't even understand how you could say so much detail. I don't have any detail. I can't find any details on how these two black holes, where they came from, how they got into association with each other, and how they did something that's physically not possible. Yeah, I don't have any details on that.
And you're saying, I just don't
know.
Because
the problem black holes might not exist. If the black holes don't exist, then their prediction doesn't make any sense at all.
That's not true. Gravity waves
not necessarily
black holes. The only reason black holes are involved is.
Oh, no, that's just crazy. Right now they're saying you could say if this wasn't two black holes, they can just turn into anything else then. Well, it doesn't have to be two black holes. It could have been, 4 semi-gray holes. It could have been some dark matter. But it certainly was a gravitational wave. There's just no doubt about it. So it's like dark matter wave or something. But it was a wave, damn it. Isn't that what they're just saying here? We don't care how degraded this evidence gets, we're still going to claim it was something important and not something stupid and over exaggerated. It'll always be something special that happened, right? It's always going to, it was a special moment in human history, special. And it just doesn't matter what the facts, like I said, it can be degraded all the way down to a glitch in a piece of hardware somewhere, and they'll say, but the hardware was measuring the wave. That's why the hardware broke, is a gravitational wave hit the transistor and broke it.
And that's according to
hello, it's because black holes are massive.
Okay, well, I'm saying that we don't know black holes.
If you're coming up with your very first eyeball, it's nice to have a really bright light to look at.
I don't even get with that in.
I don't know what that is either. Your very first eyeball, it's good to have a very bright light to look at. It's just what's evidence, okay? I'm just saying, this is everything has to be tried, and you can't try garbage. And this is all hearsay. I have a PhD, and it's my personal opinion, even though I wasn't at the scene and I don't have anything to do with this case at all, that I think, generally speaking, blue cars are always guilty. I mean, green cars are always getting blamed. It's always the blue cars that are at fault. That's what I say from my PhD experience. This is just bullshit.
Analogy is supposed to mean.
You don't. You should think about it.
Oh, I should think about it, right? Okay, whatever. Anyways.
I'm telling you things that have to do with our argument.
Well, you're not as smart as you think you are, you know that?
Yeah, you're not as polite as you think you are. I've been listening. I want to demonstrate. Here's how we demonstrate who's listening to who in my world. If you can
in my world,
what I think, and I go, okay, yeah, decent, then we have it.
Yeah, and when have you ever paraphrased anyone accurately? You're claiming that he's saying he has some desire to, I hate the idea of gravitational waves. That's not what he's saying at all. You haven't paraphrased him anywhere close to accurate. He's saying they're making pretty extraordinary claims, and this evidence is incredibly ordinary. Incredibly evidence for such extraordinary claims.
So,
I can paraphrase what you said.
Okay, I've said a lot of things.
You want to me accurately. I'm sorry, you're not. It's an objective fact.
Well, that's just because when I paraphrase you, you did not. That's fine. That's a part of it. Me trying to paraphrase and you going, no, you don't have it, is a part of the process.
Yeah, and just look like numbly numb guy. He'd get 2 sentences in now and then, maybe 3, but Pirro never let him finish a point ever in this whole conversation.
No, you put words in my mouth.
Like what?
Like saying that I was saying that. Despite their 8 years of failure, that I thought that was all worth nothing or whatever. I never said anything.
No, I've never said that.
Yeah, you did.
I'm not claiming that. I asked you what was it all for. My final statement, my most recent statement on that is that you're non-committal. I said you won't say what happened during that 8 years. Anything could happen, you say.
Of course, I won't say what happened during that 8 years.
Okay, well that's my current position. That's the closest I've.
Well, let's understand, they only had one device for a period of time, and then they knew that theoretically they weren't going to detect them with the hardware they had, because they'd get one a year if they were lucky. And, that's obviously not too good.
That they're measuring this...
Dude. They have the interferometer.
Why can't I finish these thoughts?
Because you're repeating yourself. They have the interferometer.
Yeah, he's repeating himself. He's repeating himself because he wants to finish the point. And he doesn't want to finish it like I do one sentence now, and then 10 minutes from now I'll do the second sentence. He'd like to do it in some sort of coherent way.
Right? That can measure the jostle. If they push on it, it'll jostle, and they can measure down to this resolution. How can they demonstrate that resolution, though, is they have to give it such a tiny jostle, right? Yeah, but you're not denying that the interferometer...
How could they even give it such a tiny... Like I said, as soon as you hit it with a laser beam, you're hitting it with a jostle so jostly, it's a lot more of a jostle than the fucking goddamn width of a fucking goddamn proton. Shit. I mean, this is just nonsense. The laser itself makes your fucking measuring proton thing impossible.
You just don't understand my criticism.
If that's a legitimate criticism.
I mean, who cares anyway, right? Why would you even make these claims? Why is it important for these LIGO people to say we have the most sensitive measuring device in the universe? Blah, 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 blah. Why does that have anything to do with this conversation? The point is did you measure a gravitational wave, or do you have some sort of realistic physical phenomena that you're saying you actually heard or saw or measured its existence? That's the question. I don't give a I couldn't care whether you said, we can measure how thick the average Band-Aid is on the average child's knee. Who cares? The point is can you actually detect something called a gravity wave?
Don't you think that will show up in the peer review process?
There was no peer review process, so that's the whole problem with this thing, right? They didn't come to the scientific community and say, look, we have found something, we've got something, here's our data, give it a look, see what you think. They didn't take it to any publication, they didn't get peer review, they just made their we did it announcement, period. So again, get the facts wrong again, Vic.
Right? Don't you think some other physicists...
Don't you think the authorities will take care of it? I mean, don't you think, like Vic thinks that the authorities could just take care of it and stop talking about it?
Kira, are you really, trying...
The authorities could stop talking about what authorities? You mean the talking head science selling programmers? those scientists? The people who have an incentive to be able to make this sound like a big weather event's happening. Hey, it's a big snowstorm coming. Watch the Weather Channel for more info on the gravity wave. You can't see the selling. Fuck. Oh yeah, like they don't have any vested interest in just, no, let's just not even pick at this at all because this is making us money.
So downplay the importance of authority on physics. Like, you don't think it matters how much you actually know about this?
Well, you don't think it matters. You just basically are saying, Vic, that Einstein's an idiot. Okay, so Einstein doesn't know anything about the theory of relativity or anything about the physical mechanism of gravity because, yeah, fuck his paper. Who cares? It's only Einstein. So you're the one dismissing him. I think the theory of relativity is crap, but I mean, it's a very clever theory. It's a very clever way of analogizing the mechanism. It's just a bad analogy. It's not. There is no such thing as a dimension called space-time. And there's no such thing as the dimension. I don't mean what it's called. It doesn't matter whether you call it booger. It doesn't fucking exist.
If you develop that right now, and we are going through some weird point where Nummy agrees the interferometers could work. He agrees all the way down to the wavelength of light. He understands how the length of the laser magnifies.
Yeah, well, the wavelength of light, again, light is bigger than you think, wavelength-wise. Okay, I mean, photons are tiny, but the distance between them in visible light is half a nanometer and shit. I mean, it's not a half a nanometer. It's like 500 nanometers, which is half a millimeter, right?
The distance by making the light path longer, and yet he's just saying, but how could it get so small? He seems to understand every element of how it gets that small, but he doesn't think it gets that small. And what I know, and I'll finish.
I don't think it gets that small. I said they haven't demonstrated that they.
But I think the real reason is because these claims about. I believe it's really your opinion of space-time fabric and black holes themselves that is causing you to have this position of knowing exactly how the device works.
I don't even know how that means anything. Yeah, so he's just going to presume motives and intent. There's no reason for anybody to be at all suspicious about these bold, extraordinary claims. We claim we've proven not only black holes, we've proven they can collide, and we've proven they can convert 3 solar masses into magical space-time. With this ziggly line. Sorry. So nobody should say, wait, that really doesn't sound like good science. That doesn't sound like exactly what scientists should be doing. That doesn't seem careful at all.
And saying, but it can't get that small. I'd like to go to the other side of the argument because it can get that small. They've proved it. You say no. What else is there to know about that?
They proved it. You say no. Yeah, well, yeah, you did say. Yeah, no, they haven't proven anything. They've claimed things, but they haven't proven things.
Even claim to have a theory of what dark matter is physically.
And that's
okay, look,
that's a problem because that's not how science is.
Okay, I'll be the one to say that that's not
so
true.
Science is supposed to just invent.
I know exactly.
Oh, this is what dark matter is. It's
no,
blah 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 blah.
Vic, you'd rather just go.
Well, yeah, well, Vic, I'm just saying you're going to just engineer leprechauns. Yeah, I think you should be able to explain the leprechauns. If you're going to say something extraordinary like leprechauns did it, then I think you would have an expectation. If somebody said leprechauns stole all the money in Fort Knox, I think you'd expect somebody to demonstrate that leprechauns exist.
I know exactly how it was demonstrated. So why the fuck are we talking about?
All it is a placeholder. Like they're just saying that we don't know what is keeping these galaxies together.
Can I say what the real phenomenon is?
It's a rationalized.
And they don't know it. Why? Because their presumptions are wrong about the mechanics of its function. They should be judging their fundamental theory. When the evidence doesn't match the fundamental theory, they shouldn't be saying, well, what kind of leprechaun can we make sit in there to make it work? How can we balance the teeter-totter? What kind of leprechauns can we pile on the other side? They should be saying, well, maybe our balance is out of balance.
Tell you what the real experimental phenomenon is? That's what I was going to do.
Oh, yeah, this is what is it? Now, tell me what dark matter is.
First of all, the galaxies are all... I'm telling you what got named dark matter, and we can do dark energy if you want.
No, dark energy is nothing, okay? Dark energy is just a silly rebound force, okay, that just makes the math work. But no, dark matter is the big one, right? Dark matter is the one... creating all this verification. This is the one being used to contrive a solution.
In astronomy right now. So what happened is all the galaxies are rotating too fast for the amount of mass that was estimated to be in them.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so estimated to be in them, right? So that is whose fault? Maybe their estimate isn't correct, or maybe their understanding of gravity isn't correct.
Idea. You know every fucking thing, but I get to say what is.
Because gravity, again, galaxies are flat, okay? So that's something you really do have to kind of understand, that they're flat. And so they're doing like electrical charges. They're behaving more like electrical charge than they're behaving like traditional models of gravity. And that's where you have to understand it. As elements of charge, they make a lot more sense.
It is. Great, you know that I'm right ahead of time. No, you're going to pretty good. Let me finish.
I just don't want people to think you're condescending to me here.
But you're
Yeah, well, Piro has to tell everybody because he knows, but he should have just let him describe it because he would have described it horribly wrong. So that would have been the fun part.
Sending to me, interrupting my story in the first place, going wrong. Well, I'm just saying what happened that I saw as it went along and that I buy. You can disagree all you want. The galaxies are rotating too fast for the mass estimates that were in there, based on the idea that, yeah, you can't see the dust clouds and the planets so easily. More on that in a sec. But, you'd think the stars are the big thing, so you make an estimate on that. You can add what you think the dark matter is. Plus, even you could see things that are dim, meaning dark, like they're not lit up like nebula because there's starlight behind them, and the absorption spectra. So you could see all the baryonic matter pretty well and add it up. And they're rotating too fast for that.
And they're basing the rotation speed based on redshift. So if they don't have redshift correct, then they don't have the speed of the sun's correct. So they might be overestimating how fast the galaxies are rotating merely because they don't realize that their redshift calculations are twice as high as they should be. They don't. I'm just saying, it's the simplest of explanations. Yes, if you're using redshift to calculate how fast the galaxies are spinning, you're getting the wrong answer because you don't understand redshift.
Yeah. So maybe the theory of their model's wrong.
There's a theory of that. Then in the late 2000s, everybody's going, yeah, but it could be modified physics, it could be modified Newtonian dynamics, it could be other things besides actual material, this dark matter. And there was
Look, just understand, dark matter doesn't solve the problem, because as soon as you place it somewhere, it's dark matter, which means it's supposed to be, it doesn't do anything but make gravity, right? It doesn't reflect light, it doesn't transmit light, so it's somehow irrelevant to regular. It's nothing like regular matter, except that it makes gravity. Well, if it makes gravity, it's going to make things crash into each other, and it's going to crash into things. It's just silly to say the dark matter is just speckled in little points and it never causes a collision. What happens when dark matter crashes into real matter?
Very careful study of two colliding galaxies that would determine whether the dark matter, because with the gravitational lensing from the stars behind.
Okay, so there we go. Gravitational lensing from the stars behind it. Again, there's absolute. Show me the image. Show me an image of gravitational lensing, and I'll show you a fraud. I'll show you something that can't possibly be reconciled to rational Einstein physics. The rational part of Einstein, the equation.
In these two galaxies, you could do a mathematical reconstruction of a gravity map of where the mass.
No, you can't do that. Okay, there is no such thing, and especially they're showing you galaxies this way, you know, face front, which is their weakest. The light would only be interacting with the gravity for the shortest distance, the least likely to get bent. If there's going to be any kind of lensing, it would have to be on the plane of the galaxy, maybe at the edges if you're lucky, because the light would have to travel in the gravity a long distance, and so there's some chance that you might be able to bend it, but you can't bend it anyway. The whole thing is a silly, stupid, wrong concept.
To bend the light, to do that lensing would be work back the shape of the lens from the end result, and you can.
Why don't you show a picture of that? Show a link to what you consider to be evidence of that ever taking place. Show it. Show it, so I can point out how it's a piece of shit.
See an image that shows that there is some sort of a diffuse thing that is not that the mass collided, and it's as if there's a ghost bunch of mass that didn't collide, that all shot through each other. And this was a very good mathematical demonstration.
Yeah, well, whatever this was. I don't know what this was, and it wasn't any mathematical anything, so bullshit.
Through gravitational lensing, that there is some sort of a physical thing that's particle-like in some sense, which it could be one of the predicted particles.
So he's just going on and on,
right?
Who
knows what? They don't know what.
See how long he lets nobody talk.
And the dark energy is less. It's less. It's just because they've done some calculations to show that not only is, you know, it mostly flat, the universe, but they think they've mathematically shown it's expanding faster and faster. That's named dark energy.
They're claiming it's like 70% or something of the whole universe is this dark energy. Anyways, did you know that there's Nobel Prize winning physicists who don't think that dark matter exists?
But you're just talking about the interpretations. There's none of them that don't admit the phenomena of galaxies rotating too fast.
Okay, well, of course they're not.
They admit they agree on experimental evidence.
Too fast.
I don't know whether there are. So again, that's just a claim Pirro made. There's none that have claimed that they might have redshift wrong. No, I think there have been Nobel Prize. I'm just saying I think there have been. I know there have been some well-credentialed physicists who have speculated that redshift is an intrinsic character of these things, and it's not evidence of their velocity. I would argue it is evidence of their velocity. They're just miscalculating it by 200%. I mean, they've overestimated. They've doubled the rational interpretation.
For the model.
For the amount of.
I mean, the point is, the stuff moving this way, sideways to you, would be redshifted because of its velocity alone. Velocity, because the light it would be producing from its own slow metabolism, would be redshifted. It doesn't have to be moving away from you. It just has to be moving horizontal. So that's one of the facts they don't have correct.
Fast, too fast for the model.
Yeah, so things like that prove we need a better model. So then they're working on improving the model.
Exactly, but that's not dark matter. Dark matter is just a prop to hold so that they can still use it.
And I don't. But they're not denying.
Well, it's a hypothesis. You need something to check out.
They're not denying that. I don't know what you're.
Yeah, what do you mean? They are denying that. They're claiming it's causing things. They're claiming the things caused are real, and they're completely dependent on the existence of this non-demonstrated entity. So again, they're saying the leprechauns are making the thing, and that's causing it, so you can see the magic pie at the end. So there's magic pie because, the leprechauns made it, but we're not saying the leprechauns exist, but frankly, yes, without the leprechauns, there's no pie. I mean, this is just bullshit.
Also, just modifying Newtonian dynamics and other things. They've done a lot of models, and some of them get...
I mean, if somebody comes up with a better explanation for it, they'll abandon dark matter.
No, they won't. Okay, no, quite obviously they don't want a better explanation because they're not even trying to develop one. Anybody who throws anything but what you're saying they got to throw, they get what you're showing, what you're giving numbly numb here. You don't get any kind of rational response. You get a fuck you. You don't have a PhD. That's what they get. You people are such fucking hypocrites.
Well, they don't have much to say about dark matter yet. It's just that there is a phenomenon here of something that's causing gravitation on the rest of the galaxy. And if you look at two galaxies that collide, the dark matter is spread out as though it didn't take part of the collision. Yeah, like it's kind of like ghost matter.
Yeah, it's ghost matter, so it does everything. It makes gravity, but it's not affected by gravity. I mean, you can't get any more leprechaun, for fuck's sake. You've given it how many magic powers do you have to give something before you call it a super fucking hero? I mean, this is just bullshit. You're just making a Spider-Man to save the fucking broken model.
Opposed to a law of physics we got wrong.
Yeah, but there's no
it's similar to
what ghost matter even is. They don't even have a theory.
It's something that causes gravity.
Yeah, I know that. That's what they're saying, but that's not a theory.
So that means it's non-variant.
I don't think they're
we've eliminated the fact that it's ordinary baryonic matter.
Right, and it doesn't obey any rational laws of motion or any other rules. So again, so it's just like, yes, I can make black holes as small as I want. I can put a million zillion suns on the tip of this little thing here. And I don't give a shit about any kind of practical reality bullshit. I can do it. Yeah, fuck you. You just make up this shit and you say I can make a mathematical formula that says it works. Well, so what? I can make a mathematical formula that'll draw a picture of Bugs Bunny. It doesn't make Bugs Bunny real.
And we're working from there.
I don't think there's a robust. I don't think anybody's claiming that there's a robust.
At one time, people said there must be a lot of dust and nebula in between galaxies we're not seeing. Oh, well, that won't do the radiation. Well, then in the galaxy that we're not seeing, they've eliminated those possibilities. All the more common sense ones. Dark matter survived because
they don't. They've eliminated nothing. With anything in terms of with what dramatic evidence? Oh, that's right. Very little evidence. They include and exclude with presumptions, not evidence.
The doubt that, hey, the vast majority of scientists disagree with what you're saying, and then it gets to the point of, well, why is this happening? Why is this person disagreeing? However, I mean, on the foundational level of what they're saying, you can't really make that argument.
Don't you think that they would notice the same things that Gary's noticing? That somebody would have asked that a million times and there would be an answer already for that? I mean, honestly, these aren't even...
No. Again, they'll never be able to answer the question of why, as scientists, they would be so certain on such little evidence. Why they didn't humbly come to the public and say, look, we really think we've got something. We feel good about this, and it all adds up in a way, but this is what we got. This is the evidence. I mean, it's not a slam dunk, but, it looks pretty good, right? They didn't do that. They said, we did it.
This would be difficult questions, really. It's like something that anybody could say, hey, why isn't this? Or why?
Well, if anybody, Einstein did it in 1939. Again, the point is people are claiming this validated Einstein. They're using Einstein's name with gravitational waves all over the fucking internet, all over the news, all over these documentaries. It wasn't what Einstein thought. It wasn't his theory. Like when they say Einstein's gravitational lensing. It's not Einstein's gravitational lensing. He didn't say you could have lensing in a galaxy 500, a million light years across galaxy or something. No frickin' way. He didn't say anything like that. So what's the argument? You're saying that these scientists are careful and cautious, and they don't do anything wacky, or they're not motivated by finding things, because there's more money in finding than not finding. That none of these things are their incentives, or that they are really careful, or they have any kind of they want this to be true. I don't know what else to say. Clearly, it seems obvious that that's what this is about. They love this science. They love this whole theory, this whole God theory they have. And so they're not asking these normal questions. But again, I don't know what to say. I mean, this gravity argument can't be gotten around. I mean, gravity has rules, damn it, even by Einstein's rules, even by general relativity, if I was to accept its fucking cunt existence. It's a conservative force. You can't create orbits from the exterior. You have to create them from the interior. You have to do something to manipulate the event to create these things. They're not naturally happening. They're happening because of circumstances that are making them happen. Something unusual has to happen. Where's the explanation for it? But if Einstein asked in 1939, what are you going to do with all this energy? You have 60 solar masses moving half the speed of light. How are you going to dissipate that energy? Why don't you answer the question, Vic?
Like the sensitivity, for instance, of the calibration of LIGO, right? That's a very basic question that like anybody would come up with. You don't think that like these scientists, these engineers would come up with that question? Like, hey.
Well, I'm just saying, where's the answer to the question then? If you're saying it's a question they've been asked and they've answered, or they internally would ask it, then why aren't they showing us that? These are the frequently asked questions. These are the questions we asked ourselves. Can we know every possible noise in the universe? No, we can't. Can we know what 100 years sound like, or 1,000 years sounds like? Can we know events that haven't happened? I mean, if tornadoes happen once every 500 years, what would human knowledge be? If the last tornado was 500 years ago, what do you think the story would be? Do you think the story of the tornado would be something that is actually like tornadoes are actually going to be like?
Yeah, how do we calibrate this thing? Shouldn't we calibrate this thing first? How can we rely on this?
Well,
I think that if you could come up with that question, why don't you think that all these PhDs, engineers, physicists, mathematicians...
Because they don't want to admit that their technology isn't good enough, that they can't really do what they wish they could do. They just don't want to admit it. And that it's just going to be confirmation bias. They want something to be true, and so the first monkey that types LIGO, there you go, we win.
The interest, no, it's not that they're dishonest. It's that their own survival, their careers, their interests as an industry, basically.
All of them, right?
All of them.
They don't all agree with it. You see, you think it's this completely ubiquitous.
Everybody on the project is vouching for that stuff.
Yeah,
if you don't think that most physicists agree on quantum theory, then you don't know what you're talking about.
I didn't say.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. You don't even know what's quantum theory, fuckbrain. Go ahead, write me a paragraph explaining what you think quantum theory is. Shit for brain.
I didn't say that most of them didn't agree. I said there are some that don't. people who have
crackpots like Miles.
No, Nobel Prize winner.
Yeah, so he just called Miles Mathis a crockpot. You know, the guy is only, you know, so much more accomplished than Vic, right? I mean, he's a great artist. He obviously knows math. He was a prodigy. He's chess champions, all kinds of things. And it's fucking Vic. He's smarter than him. I mean, Miles Mathis is wrong, but that doesn't. You can't deny the guy's got some knowledge balls. And Vic's sitting there with his little Peter.
That's why there's a peer review process, Numby, and that's why.
Yeah. There's a peer review process. So you know that's like saying, well, you know, Walt Disney personally walked down the sidewalk and said everything's okay today. You know, what does this peer review mean? Who are these peers? Is that like going to the Supreme Court? Oh yeah, they're the bastion of ultimate reason and knowledge. Those lunatics.
Get weeded out. It's like, yeah,
with what process? Weeded out by what? Public approval. They do what we want to. They say what we want to hear.
So have you know, some microbiologists who are creationists and they reject the theory of evolution.
Okay, so your argument is just like
relevant.
Shut up. Like it's like we may as well not talk about it.
Kind of argument because really,
no, I mean it's okay to talk about it, but I don't think you can. I mean the thing is when you talk about it so conclusively, like Gary does.
Yeah, conclusively in what sense? In the sense that I don't think this is very good science. To say you did something or proved something or have established something and you have nothing but the thinnest of possible evidence, I don't think that's really good scientific process. Yeah, I think that's really dangerous scientific process. That's how mistakes get made. You know, if you don't validate the stairs as you're walking up them, or you don't validate there's not a puddle of quicksand in your path, you know, that's how you get into the whole disaster thing. That's how you end up with leaning towers, is because, yeah, you just didn't walk the ground beforehand, did you?
I know you're not, but I'm saying Gary does, right? It's absurd. It's a joke.
Well, he's defending Gary here, so...
I'm defending...
He's defending Gary here. I mean, fuck you, cunt. I'll beat your ass in any argument. Name one. Anytime, anywhere, any place. Oh, God. What a fucking weasel. I'm just so sick of these fucking obnoxious, this fucking little trolls. They make their little trolly rhetoric comments. They don't have the balls to make a video because they know I'll humiliate the fuck out of them. So go ahead and make a video claiming I've done something horrendously. I made horrendous errors. I've catastrophically misunderstood because I'm some sort of dumbass ignoramus. Go ahead and make the video trying to prove that, you fucking cunts. You weak-ass, goddamn lame fuckers. But fortunately, this is all on the record. So when it comes to later time, you know, when it comes to pissing on some graves,
Gary's effort at trying to create a model of physics. I'm not defending...
Well, if he wants to create a model of physics, you don't do that by watching fucking YouTube videos.
And the thing...
yeah, right. You don't watch that by watching MIT, Stanford, Yale, and Harvard. No, that's a stupid thing to do. Don't watch fucking God. Look, I mean, they're, you know... Einstein's Theory of General Relativity, Lecture 3. Lecturer Leonard Susskind continues the discussion of Einstein's theory. No, this won't learn you nothing. You ain't gonna learn nothing doing that. Oh, look, another lecture. What's this one? Oh, okay, yeah, that's MIT. I mean, fuck. Ohm's law, blah, blah, blah. Resistivity, yeah, blah, blah, blah. No, that's all bullshit, huh? I've been doing that for 4 fucking years. Fuck you, you little fucking weaselly cunt. God, you petty fuck. Who the fuck are you anyway, you little... Another jive-talking weasel fuckface who puts somebody else's image on... You know, I have to ride on some other personality because you don't have fucking one.
Hey, Numby, is that... It's a little more... The way you're presenting yourself here is a little more than just a skeptic. Because you basically said outright, categorically, no, they have not demonstrated sufficiently that this thing can actually work as they claim. They can detect it.
Well, yeah, what's wrong with that claim? Where have they done that? Where, I mean, they just basically are saying, look, we found the monkey typed it on the typewriter, therefore it's a fact. That must exist. Tinkerbell exists. The monkey's typed her name. I don't know if the monkey way of acquiring knowledge is all that good. Jump ahead a little.
In my theories, it's really a sine wave. You'd have a hell of a time proving that. So, because mathematically, we could take a picture and trace along exposure and see what the line, measure it, and see it's nothing like a sine wave. And see that it's not like a secant, which it could be too. So, that's how we're determining these things that we're arguing about.
No, we're not.
And Gary has already made statements that
No. We're talking about black holes, stuff like that. You're not going to do that with black holes.
I've already made
what
statements.
What am I not going to do with the black holes?
You're not going to describe them with the accuracy that you could describe the parabola.
Well, I thought we'd also gone on to Gary's view of the two-slit, and he's denied the result there. But I think it doesn't.
What have I denied? Again, what have I denied? I mean, it's just such a liar. You're the one in denial. You're the one not showing the facts. You're not showing this is the... You draw some crap image, a fucking... I mean, they wouldn't even let a grammar school teacher do it that poorly. A nursery school teacher wouldn't be allowed to do it that wrong. All right, in terms of describing the reality. I mean, what a cunt.
Apply to the black hole situation as well.
Well, how does Gary's model account?
It's not as well established, but it's well established.
How does Gary's model account for what? Damn, I missed that one.
You have a model, it makes predictions, you look in reality, you see the predictions, until you get a model that does better, then it's the winning model for the time. It's the head of the horse race. Yeah, something else better is going to come along eventually. Maybe.
Oh, yeah, right. That's the way scientists should think. Oh, yeah, well, they've already got it wrong in the past, so we'll always get it wrong, too, because everybody just gets it wrong until they get it right, sort of. But then they'll be wrong anyway. The world is really not flat. I mean, cheese isn't made out of cow's milk. Nothing's what you think. It's all run by leprechauns. In the end, it's going to be leprechauns all the way down. So let's not even bother thinking things and realizing that knowledge evolves. And that the real point of this whole conversation is there's a certain standard. The trial of evidence should come to a certain standard. You shouldn't establish something as goddamn fact until you've done something called prove it. Either rationally or evidentially. I'm just saying that on both scales, the argument for this physics doesn't fit it breaks fundamental established laws of physics, or you have to contrive leprechauns to make it possible. Those are really bad circumstances.
Before you're alive, dead. Maybe not. Maybe you're the one that makes it. Good luck with that. But you can't just call everybody assholes and say.
I never said anything.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, he's calling everybody an asshole because he's saying, hey, this is a little bit excessive rhetoric. Can we just say that this is excessive rhetoric for scientists? They shouldn't be talking like this. They shouldn't be behaving this way. There should be a little more discipline.
Never said anything.
Gary, we're talking about Gary. Gary calls every other scientist now, even Einstein, who he used to have some respect, and now they're all assholes.
They're all idiots.
Well, I don't share. I'm not.
Well, again, this isn't my. Those aren't my words. My words are they were wrong. Einstein was wrong. Okay, bent space is it's a vacuous analogy. Metaphor. It's not even an analogy because it doesn't really exist. It's just a vacuous metaphor. It doesn't solve the problem. It's like the God of the goddamn gaps. It's just saying, well, look, we don't know how it happened, so God must have done it. And then, well, yeah, God just always was. He didn't have to get done-ed. Nobody got it done of God. I mean, it's an empty... It doesn't provide an explanation, you fuckers. You don't understand? It doesn't provide a source of energy, and it doesn't even provide a mechanism. It just says they magically attract. Through the magic attraction.
I'm not a delegate of Gary's camp. Okay.
Okay. Well, we went on a side topic about defending Gary's right to feel
I said I thought
when he denies reality.
He denies reality, just as I denied reality. What fucking reality am I denying? What fact have you established that I'm denying? I mean, you're just such a cunt liar. And the fact that none of these assholes will even call Pirro out on that being a lie, that being a preposterous exaggeration of my argument. I mean, fuck you all till goddamn motherfucking cunt dead.
I didn't defend it. I said I thought you weren't accurately represented.
Right.
Very different. Yeah, you gotta just be a little more careful with.
Don't tell me how to be.
No, don't tell me how to be. Yeah, don't tell me I have to be careful. I can slander people all I want. I can make up leprechauns and all I want. I can say all the shit. I can say scientist says. I can say scientist says. Scientist says. Science says. I'll tell you that anytime I want to. I don't have to prove anything or argue anything or provide evidence of anything. What a fucking cunt.
So curious. I am so curious about what your motivations are, and I mean, where are you coming from?
I'm coming from that I think I don't like the way that the current understanding of, physics and cosmology has developed. Like, I think that it's drifted away from the rigors of real science. Because
based on what?
Based on what? He just gave you the examples. The biggest force movers in the universe, they're just making them fucking goddamn up. They're making leprechauns called dark matter. The magical force that does everything. Anything you need it to do, it'll do. Trust me. We can make it do anything. It will save the day. No doubt about it. Because it has it needs X-ray vision, it's going to have X-ray vision.